Welcome everyone to our first ApprovalMax product update webinar of the year. We're so excited to have you here. What we're going to cover today is on our agenda, which is on the screen at the moment. I'm Dee Johns, I'm the head of product marketing, and I'm joined by our product expert, Justin.
Yeah, hi everyone. We've got some really exciting updates to share. So we're really looking forward to sharing those with you and hearing your thoughts in the chat as well on those updates. Great.
Brilliant. Thanks, Justin. So before we get started, just a few housekeeping items. Zoom takes up a lot of bandwidth. So for the best experience, we recommend that you close any unnecessary programs. Everyone registered will get a copy of the recording by the end of the week. We also want to have an interactive session, so please drop in any of your questions in the Q&A at any time during the presentation, and our experts are live to answer them for you. As Justin said, we're going to run just a quick poll at the end, just so we can help us shape all of our updates, and we want you to take part in that. Okay, Justin. So we have quite a few people on the call today that are new to ApprovalMax. And ApprovalMax is a powerful accounts payable and receivable automation solution that gives you full control over approvals. It's trusted worldwide by businesses, accountants, and bookkeepers to strengthen financial controls, all within the one platform. Justin, I think we can jump straight into our first update.
Fantastic. Okay, so all right. Do you want to stop sharing your screen and I'll take over?
Lovely.
There,
Thanks,
there
Justin.
we go. Fantastic. Okay, so yeah, we've got quite a bit to get through today. All right, sorry, just getting this all. Oh, press the wrong button there. Okay, let's just confirm. Yep, all right, you guys are all seeing my screen. Perfect. Okay, so the first new feature that we're kicking off today is the on hold status. So this is something that we've had an awful lot of feedback on from our customers wanting to be able to put requests on hold. So just imagine a bill or a purchase order comes through. You don't want to approve it, but at the same time, you don't want to reject it. You're probably waiting on more information. So if any of you sort of do like run a Kanban board or a to-do list, often you'll have like an on-hold waiting status in your task list, this kind of serves the same function. So we're just going to jump into ApprovalMax right now and we'll go to one of our requests up here. So we've got a bill request sitting here. And you'll notice now you have a padlock that wasn't there before. So if you click on the padlock, we can say waiting on confirmation that delivery has arrived, for example. And then you can hit save. And then where you find the things that are on hold is underneath the selector box here. You've got all requests, requires my decision, requires my review, and now you have on hold. So if you click on hold, you can see all of your requests that are currently sitting on hold, and then you can come in here and return them to the approval process. So that's pretty straightforward. Okay, now the next thing we've got is nudge. So a question for you, Dee. Did you ever use the poke feature in Facebook?
Oh my goodness, Justin. I can't say that I ever have used that feature, but why don't you tell? Have you ever used it?
No, I never used it, but what I did use, which is showing my age, is there was a nudge feature in MSN Messenger, and you could, if someone wasn't paying attention, if perhaps if they had the chat minimized, you could nudge them, and it would bring the screen up, and so it's sort of similar to that. Um, in Approval Max, with your reminders, you can set deadlines. So you can set deadlines, and people will get an automatic deadline reminder if things are overdue. And you can also run reports, schedule reports to tell you um, who, who a request is waiting on. So I call that the report of shame. So I teach people how to build this report, and and it tells you who it is. But if you want to kind of manually, until now, unless you wanted to manually chase someone up, you had a couple options. You could tag them in the comment section of the request. That would be one option, or you might message them in Teams or Slack or something. Um, but then that kind of takes you out of the system, and there's no audit trail of that. So now in Approval Max, you can nudge someone. So we'll go back to our all of our requests here, and here's one I've prepared earlier, because it won't let you nudge someone unless it's more than 24 hours old. So you can't just keep nudging people. But if they haven't responded to the request after 24 hours, you can click on the nudge, and that will notify them that they need to do that approval. So they'll get an email notification telling them that been nudged, and we also record this in the audit trail. So if you've got some serial offenders, you've got when they say, "Oh, no one told me," you can go to the audit trail and see that you've nudged them several times. All right, so
Justin,
let's
I love that little feature. It's like having a virtual tap on the shoulder when you need to do something. We've actually got a question about the on hold, just early,
yes.
and thank you for asking your questions in Q&A. This is awesome. How to take items off hold when they're good to go?
Yeah, okay. So let's go back, and we go to on hold, and you just click on it again, and it says reason to return the request to the approval. So we could say delivery arrived, and go save, and that'll return it to the normal approval process.
Awesome. Thanks, Justin.
Okay, all right. So let's move on to the next thing. Okay, so question for the chat actually is how many people in are using Approval Max for NetSuite? Do we have any Approval Max for NetSuite users here? So we've actually added a lot of functionality to Approval Max for NetSuite. So if you're an Approval Max for NetSuite user, what I'd actually uh, encourage you to do is look at the workflows that are now available and see if you can incorporate some of the other ones, because some of our existing users might just be doing bills and purchase orders, and they may not have even noticed that we've added a whole bunch of new workflows. So the latest one to add is sales invoice approvals. So you can now approve invoices from the accounts receivable side. But we also added fairly recently sales orders as well. So if you, as part of your whole AR process, you can now do the approval for both the sales orders and the sales invoices. So let's go and have a look at that. So I'll jump into Approval Max. Now I'll need to change to my NetSuite demo environment. So we'll go in here, we'll go to my subsidiary 2, and then we'll go down to approval workflows. So if you've been on if you signed up say a year ago, I think we only had the purchase orders and the vendor bills, but since then we've added expense reports, vendor return authorizations, bill payments, and now there's sales orders and the invoice workflows, as well as well, we're going to go get to this in the next section. Um, and we'll go to invoice workflows, and so now you can create the sales invoice inside NetSuite, and as long as it goes to the pending pending approval status, it will pick it up. So the way it works is we sync with NetSuite every 2 hours, and then you can come in here and build your approval workflows just like you would with any of your other workflows in ApprovalMax. And then once it's approved, we'll update the status in NetSuite. So and if I go and I'll show you what one of the finished sales orders looks like. So we got to get out of here. And so this is one I did earlier. So all of the information flows through to ApprovalMax, and just like all the other things, we attach the order report to it as well. Okay. All right. So we'll
Justin,
move.
that's
Yes.
I was just going to ask you a question on sales orders and invoices, and I can see that we have a whole lot of questions in the chat as opposed to in the Q&A. I'll come back to those in just one moment
Sure.
after
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
asked Justin a question. But can you give us a use case, please, for using sales invoices and sales orders together?
Yeah, yeah. So let's start with the sales orders. So, I mean, our NetSuite customers tend to have, more complex needs, and so the sales order allows you to, when an order comes in from a customer, to basically confirm that you can actually dispatch that order and you've got the right things in stock before you accept the order. And then so there's two different so that's where the sales order approval would come in, and the sales invoice approval. I can imagine all kinds of scenarios, having worked in sales teams for a lot of my career, where you might want to have customer facing people prepare an invoice, but you might want it to go through some kind of approval process before that invoice actually gets sent out to a customer. So that's, and by the way, that's true of our Zero product as well. You know that, and also now QuickBooks, that you could also use. You can use us now for the AR side of things, not just the AP side.
Yeah,
Yeah. Now, were we going to
brilliant.
answer any of those questions, or should I move
We
on to the next?
No, no, we're absolutely going to answer those. The chat is blowing up with nudge, so we really hit a winner
All
there.
right.
Can
Yes.
everybody would like to know why they can't see it at the moment or where it is?
Oh, yes, of course. Yeah, it's a beta feature at the moment, so it'll be out in a future release. Yeah, so you'll just need to wait a little bit longer for that one. So quite a few of the things we're going through today are actually are in beta, but that means that they should be released in, sometime in quarter 2. It won't be that long until they get a general release.
So, thanks, Justin. We can go on to our next update.
Okay, perfect. All right. So I might have snuck into this one a little bit before, but this is actually one of my favorite features in ApprovalMax. So we've now added this feature in NetSuite as well. But those of you who are on the Zero product and on the QuickBooks product would know that you can do approvals for contacts in Zero or vendors in QBO. So we now have vendor approval in NetSuite, and this is a really important financial control, because it allows you to control what suppliers get added to your accounting system. So just imagine you're entering in a bill. So we'll go into here. So the best way to think about it is, if we go to our approval workflows, when we're setting up who can add a purchase order or a bill. setting up our requesters, one of the options we have is allow to create new vendors. And generally, you don't want to tick that, because when you tick that box, that allows someone to just create a new vendor um, on the fly. That just you can just click on. There'll be an option to add a new customer, and you can just fill it in as you go. So, what would generally be best practice is to actually get someone to fill in this form here, this approval here, the vendor approval form. So they'd come in here and they'd fill in all the details of the new supplier, or perhaps in some cases just the basic details as best they can, and then it would then go to usually it's someone in the finance team, in the accounts payable team, to check it. And often that would also involve doing an ABN checkup, and perhaps even looking up directors, or depending on what kind of business you're in, and going through a like a more formal process of checking that the bank account is correct. And then once it's done, they can approve it, and then that will add the vendor to NetSuite, and and then that would allow the requesters of bills and purchase orders to select the vendor from the list. So it's a really important financial control, is to come in to the approval workflow, um, and actually have a multi-person approval process for adding new vendors to any of your accounting systems. So it's really good. We now have this in NetSuite as well.
This is a great feature, Justin. Can you please give us a real life example of why this is important?
Yeah. So yeah, there's quite a few, because I try to follow the news on different fraud cases. Um, but um, but one example I can think of is up here in Queensland. There was a magazine, a business that was running I think it was a fishing magazine, and for about a year, none of their suppliers actually, when I say suppliers, I also include the Australian Tax Office in this, actually got paid. So the invoices were going through the accounting system, but the bank details were actually to someone else's bank account. And so that business ended up shrinking its staff quite dramatically. It went from, I think, like 20 or 30 people to only like a small group of people. And they ended up having to pay back to their suppliers, and also to the tax office, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So not only were they stolen from, they they were also they also still had all the debts that they hadn't been paid, that they thought that they were getting paid. So they kind of like lost twice. With
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was and things I'm not things like having a tight control of vendor approvals. Oh,
Yes.
sorry, the adding new approvers, and having very strict controls on who can update the bank details in particular. And then also, you've got you're implementing bill payment workflows too in NetSuite, or batch payments and zero, things like that. It's not just one feature is going to automatically protect you from fraud, but
Yes.
like, um, a combination of these different financial controls could really help protect a business.
Yes, absolutely. That's a timely reminder, Justin. Thank you. Just going to answer a question live before you get on to the next update, Justin. We're just referring back to Nudge. Who has access to the button? Is it only the requester, or can approvers nudge other approvers?
It would just be the requester, I believe, and maybe actually we might have to confirm that. I would imagine also the anyone with admin privileges as well would have
Access.
it. But to be honest, I didn't think to ask that question, so that's a good question.
So it's a great question. We will find out for you as well, and let you know. Moving on, Justin, to our next update.
Okay, great. Okay, this one's another one we've had a lot of requests for. So it's not quite in the product just yet, so I can't demo this one, but what this is, we now have ApprovalMax capture for purchase orders. And you might think, oh, why would I need ApprovalMax capture for purchase orders? Well, in a lot of cases, when you're preparing a purchase order, you've already been dealing with a supplier and they might have already actually given you a quote, which has all of the information you need to fill in the purchase order on the quote. So what this would allow you to do is to upload your quote and turn that and then extract all the information from that quote and then use that to populate a purchase order. And we've had quite a few customers who have asked for this because it would be a really significant time saver for them. Okay, all right, so we'll move on. All right, all right, so this is another really, really big one. Well, it's actually a very minor thing, but it makes a huge, huge difference. So you can now you can now track, you can now more easily see the status of goods received notes. So people might not be aware, but in about a year ago, so I'll switch back to zero. About a year ago, we released goods received notes that are connected to your purchase orders. So if we go into a purchase order here, or if you've got the feature turned on, um, you've got goods received notes here, and you can update your status and you can go you can say that it was something was not received, partially received, fully received, leave a comment on your goods on your purchase order. So that was all really good. The problem is the time you might actually want that information is probably the time that you're approving the payment of the bill, because before you make the payment of the bill, you probably want to make sure that the purchase order actually got delivered and that the the person who did the order is happy for the bill to be paid. So if we now go to the Alan Williams bill, um, we've got you can now see on the bill to purchase order matching screen the goods received note status. So once you've matched your bill to a purchase order, and even from the screen when you're matching, you have now added this field here: goods received note, fully received, partially received, not received. So in general, if the goods received note hasn't been updated, this actually might be a good use of the on hold feature, because you
Mhm.
might you might go to the you might go, oh, gee, this bill isn't ready to be approved because the goods haven't been delivered yet, or what have you. So you might actually go up to your on hold and say, awaiting confirmation on GRN, and save. So that's a way that you could use those features in combination with each other. Okay. All right. So we might move on to the next thing then, which is scheduled payment. So I'll need to go into a different environment now. So just to kind of a recap on this is that in the UK we now have ApprovalMax Pay, which is where you can do approvals for payment, and it actually pays the bill. So there's no messing around with CSV files or ABA files, or you're having to upload batches to your bank. And here in Australia and New Zealand, we do have the integration with AirWallet. So if you're looking for that functionality here, you could look at that. But with open banking, it works with your Main Street Bank, and we've got one we've got a batch payment waiting to be paid here, and what we've now done is we've got when you click on the Pay with ApprovalMax button, you can actually now click on here, and instead of just giving you the ability to pay now, you could now also come in here and pick the date that you'd want to pay these batches. So a couple little things like that. Not every bank support. So if you've got customers in the UK, not every bank supports it. So it depends on the individual bank whether or not we can schedule a payment. And the other thing is you just need to be mindful of bank holidays as well. That that it- depending on what payment method it uses, if you do it on a Sunday, it might not actually get processed till the next working day. But in saying that, increasingly, a lot of the payment methods like Osco here are instant and work even on the weekend. So um, that's another thing that is improving. All right, so that's that, and then there was another thing we are going to go through on oh yeah, overdrafts. So of course it's extremely common for businesses to have an overdraft, but with Approval Max Pay, the way it works is it actually asks the bank, are there the funds in the bank to actually be able to pay the bills? But what we've now done is allow you to tell Approval Max that you have an overdraft facility. So even if the funds aren't in the bank, to proceed with the payment, and I'll show you how you can turn that feature on. So we'll go out of here, and we'll go into our workflow, and we'll go. This is just in your settings. So you go approval workflows, and then you go to the batch payment workflows. And then we go up to the gear icon, and now you've got this section here, balance control. And if you have an overdraft and you want to use it, you can now turn on this allow sending payments. Um, so it says when the available balance is connected in the connected bank account is not enough to cover the payment, the system should allow sending in payments, or you can have it left as turned off. So those are your options there. Yeah, so I mean, it'd be interesting to know if anyone listening today um, is based in the UK or has clients in the UK. How useful that is for you. But all of these features here, by the way, are they are likely to come to this part of the world at a later date. So we as well.
Yeah,
All
thanks,
right.
Justin. I was just going to ask you that question. Simon wanted to know if Approval Max Pay is available now in Australia.
Not at the moment. So if you're really desperate to have this kind of functionality, I'd definitely recommend looking at Airwallex, setting up an Airwallex facility, which we integrate with. But it is our plan to have Approval Max Pay in Australia and New Zealand and Singapore in the future. So
It is.
yeah, yeah. So we'll but we don't have any set timeframes on it. Sorry. Okay. All right. So bill duplication detection. So many of you may have encountered duplicate detection before in Approval Max. We've made an improvement to it. So now it also factors in the reference number. So prior to just recently, the way we'd try to detect duplicates was based on supplier date and amount. But now, if you have a matching invoice number, that will also flag it, which is just significantly reduces the likelihood that something might slip through. And we spent a lot of time earlier talking about fraud, um, and as serious as fraud is, there's one of the biggest risks, of course, is just making accounting mistakes and accidentally transferring things, double paying and doing things like that as well. So things like duplicate detection are very important. So if I just make a copy of this bill, I'll demo it now. I'll just make a note of the reference number, R1. Okay. So if I go R1 and I go submit for approval, it'll actually give me a pop-up telling me that there's at least one other request that looks similar, and it gives me an opportunity to cancel or submit. Um, and then on the actual bill, once you've submitted it, it still also gives you this pop-up at the top of the screen so approvers would also know that it's a potential duplicate as well. So and you've got quite a bit of protection there from accidentally doing duplicates.
Justin, we've got a question about that. Is the feature for invoice duplication active now, or is that in the beta stage?
I believe that's been updated now. Yeah, I believe that's already been updated. So I mean, we already had
Yes.
duplicate detection before, but now it's just been improved to factor in the reference number
Yes.
as well.
Yes, Justin, you're absolutely right. It is live in the product.
Cool. Great. All right. Okay. Another sort of unsung hero we're going to go through is credit notes for AP and AR. So we've had the workflow to do credit notes for quite some time in ApprovalMax for Xero. But what we haven't had until very recently, and this feature is in beta, is the ability to do the form. So if I now go into ApprovalMax and we go in here, we now can actually create the form for the credit note. So if I go and put in, click on the plus, I can then fill it in, and I can. So let's just do a credit note for that, and put that through. So the fact that previously you had to create the credit note in Xero, I think limited the usefulness of the fact that we could do approvals for credit notes. Whereas I think in a lot of scenarios, one of the benefits of ApprovalMax is it keeps people out of Xero. So it limits who has access to Xero. But you might have situations where you have project leaders or customer facing people, or I mean, there's all kinds of scenarios where where they where you might want them to be able to raise a credit note and have that go through an approval process for your finance team to approve and apply. But an example from my career was when I was an account manager. Potentially we might need to offer a refund on something, and that involved a lot of emails and a lot of back and forth and Slack messages and things like that. Whereas if I had a functionality like this, I could have drafted a credit note. I could have put the reason why the credit note needed to be applied, and it would have put it in automatic workflow to be approved.
Thanks, Justin. We have a question. Can you add an attachment to a credit note?
I think so. You can add it down here. Um, let me just check that actually. I didn't look. Yes, down here you can add an attachment. Yeah, as well.
Great. Thanks for the question, Angela.
Okay. All right. Let's jump to the next thing. Okay. So this is a big one. This is grouping of accounts. So again, it's another thing that's in beta coming soon. Um, s- so so um, so one of the most powerful features of Approval Max when you're dealing with requesters and approvers and things is the ability to give people a selection of accounts to pick from. And I think this is going to come in really handy later this year when we release expense approvals. Because if I go into Xero now, and I go to my approval workflow, we'll go into bill workflow. What I can do now is I can click on this cylinder, group of values. And at the moment, it's just for account codes, but we'll look at other use cases potentially in the future. I can go add a new group, and I can put in. So I might put in income expenses now because income because I've already done is a group of expense accounts. So I can come in here, and what I can do is I can select the income accounts that I want people to like. Wouldn't want them to be able to select interest income, and I don't want them to be able to see. Um, I don't want them to be able to see all these other accounts when they're creating a request. So I can go save. Oh, sorry. Hang on. I did that wrong. Okay, so and then I can, yeah, you got to do this arrow, put it over here, and then go save, and then you leave a comment. So do, I've done that. Now in either like the requester matrix, the review step, or approval step, what I can do now is I can come in here and under the account code, rather than having to select all these. So what I would have had to do previously, if I wanted to give all of the people a selection of expense codes, is I would have gone and selected all the codes like this, and then I might have copied it from one user to another. That would have been my time saving way of doing it. But what I can do now is if I've created a group, all I have to do is come in here and select the expense group. So if I come in, go expense, and let's say we do an update to our chart of accounts and add in a new expense code that we want all of these people to have access to, all we'd have to do is go and add that chart of account to the expense, update the group. So that would mean this account field would be automatically updated for all of these users. So you can see how much this would reduce the amount of time a workflow manager has to do in managing these account codes. And I do see a lot of approval matrices where people are spending a lot of time selecting, you know, each an individual account for each user. So this can be a real big time saver. And I'm sure a lot of our customers and users on the call today are going to come up with lots of use cases I haven't even thought of.
Probably, Justin. I think you're absolutely right. There's just a couple of questions, but before we get to those, this feature is going to land in about a month and a half. So please look out for it. I'm really excited about this feature, Justin. Not only just the time saving that you just demoed, but it's also really useful if an account code changes. You then don't have to go through the whole entire process. You just change it
Yeah.
once and it'll be changed in the group of accounts.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a really good, and I can see us expanding it out for other things in the future as well. Yeah, so
Absolutely, yes.
yeah. All right.
Now
So
we've got we're nearly at our polls. So just
mm,
before we go into the poll, Justin, I just wanted to, if you could put that on the screen while we're
yeah.
talking. There's a couple of questions. Kylie, thank you. I really like the group of accounts update. That'll be very helpful and save time. So already our customers are really excited about it. There's a couple of questions in relation to some of the things we've gone through. Uh, Kayleen wants to know, how can you automatically attach a PO to an invoice?
To bill.
To an invoice, but I would imagine
Yeah,
it's a bill.
so the best way to do that is after the purchase order has been approved, go and copy to. So I'll get out of this screen now, and so if you've got a purchase order, or we'll just go to all requests. Yeah, this is generally my recommended workflow for people doing purchase orders. You go copy to and bill, and what it'll do is it'll automatically copy over both the order report and the purchase order to the bill. So it'll make a copy of it. You still need to do the matching manually, like you go in and do the matching, but it'll give you a copy of the purchase order that the bill is based on.
Brilliant. Thanks, Justin. John wants to know, can you create a group of accounts for a reviewer to select from?
Yes, yes. So that feature works for requesters, reviewers, and approvers. Yeah, so it works in all of those options.
Brilliant. Okay, so let me just start the poll, as you can see it on the screen at the moment, and then we will still be answering questions, but let me just start the poll for everybody. So what we'd like to know is, which features will you find most useful to your workflow? Oh, right out of the gate, Justin. On hold
Yeah, yeah,
status and nudge.
yeah, yeah. They're definitely. I mean, they're the most general, so that that
Yes.
helps.
It
Um,
it does, and they are coming to all of our general ledgers, Xero, QuickBooks, and NetSuite
yeah,
users.
that's
So
right.
that's
Yeah,
brilliant.
yeah, yeah. So a
We
couple people in the capture for purchase orders as well, because yeah, that definitely
yes,
was a use case that has come up on a few occasions. Um,
and I
yeah,
think
so
the tracked goods received note status, especially now when you can also use it with the on hold. When you're not ready to approve it yet, and you can put it in the on hold status. I think that's a really good feature.
yeah, and it looks like we've got a couple NetSuite users
We
on the
do.
call, so that's great. Yeah, yeah. So it
Just
looks like
nice.
Nudge is winning. That's not a surprise because
That's correct. I'm just sharing the results, and I'm hoping everybody will be able to see them. But what we have, Justin, 69 for on hold status, which is 69%. Nudge is 75%, which has just come up. And then we've got a couple of other things like bill detection, 46%, group of accounts, 54. So there's quite a few nice little updates there.
yeah, yeah, that's good. Actually, that's pretty good coverage because I mean, even
Mm.
the features that are a bit more niche are getting some love. So that's really good.
They really are. 21% for credit notes for AP and AR, which is lovely.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
can see a couple of people still, oh, really great updates. Thanks, Andrea. Really, really excited to bring these updates to everybody. So Justin, if you could please go to the next slide.
Sure. Yes.
It's lovely. So thank you everybody for joining us. We're really excited about these updates, and it brings our session to an end.